For the final time this season, guys, it's Shadowhunters discussion time! So here we are, it's the end of season 1. We've survived a whole 13 episodes. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen going into this episode because the ending that I predicted for the season, the whole sibling reveal and stuff, that happened in episode 11, so I didn't know what to expect from episode 13. I had a few predictions. A lot of them were utterly wrong. However, I did get a few of them right. I predicted that Simon would go against Raphael and there would be drama there. I predicted Jocelyn would wakey in this episode. I also predicted that Jace would end up going off with Valentine. And then, just last week, in my last video, what did I say? My big concern about Camille being back in the show. I predicted that we might see some City of Fallen Angels level Malik angst. And then what do you know? That's exactly what we get. Malik can't just be happy for one episode. One episode. That's all I wanted. Okay, anyway, aside from that, let's get to discussing episode 13, Morning Star. So the episode starts with Jace and Clary having a conversation about how Jace isn't like his father. Well, that's what Clary is trying to assure him anyway. He's still looking at the JC box. He's convinced he's a bad person and that, in his words, a pair of baby booties isn't going to change that. Dominic Sherwood saying baby booties. I want that on repeat. I want that as my ringtone. It was so cute, even though it was such a tense scene. I burst out laughing. So then we move on to Alec having the conversation with his parents. Mayrus is still acting salty towards him. She can barely look at him. She talks about how he's embarrassed them in front of the whole institute, and Alec is like, why? Because he's a guy? And I love that Mayrus is like, no, not because he's a guy, but because he's Magnus Bane. I really love that. Also, let's take a moment to appreciate Matt Tadario in that white shirt of his with the rolled up sleeves. That's my aesthetic. So then Alec ends up in a hallway talking with Magnus. Magnus is worried that Alec regrets what happened in episode 12. And Alec's like, everything happened so fast, we need to slow things down. And Magnus is like, okay, we'll slow things down and go on that first date. And he's just about to suggest a place to go on that first date when they walk into the room and find Lydia on the floor. First of all, I'm super thrilled that Lydia is alive, because I was very worried there. At least now we have potential for her to come back into the show in season 2, which I hope she does, because I think she could be an awesome ally to these guys. She whispers one word and it is Hodge. So then we cut to the squad. Jace, Alec, Izzy and Clary are in front of the computers looking at security footage. They discover that Hodge is the one that has betrayed them. And speaking of Hodge, we then cut to a scene with that little shit. He's handing over the cup to Valentine. Well done, Hodge! Valentine is a complete and utter dick throughout this scene, but I've got to say, he's great. Alan playing Valentine is so much better than movie Valentine, like a million times better. I like Alan as Valentine. So then Valentine grants Hodge his freedom. Hodge looks so hopeful and proud of himself. Like, I don't want to say he looks cute, but he actually looks like a really cute puppy dog. And he really shouldn't, because I want to hate Hodge. Hodge assumes that he's going to be allowed into Valentine's inner ranks, and he's like, we have the cup now, what more do we want? And Valentine's like, we! He shoots Hodge down. All of Hodge's hopes and dreams come crushing to the ground. Hodge is on his own, because Valentine is a deceitful little shit. Which Hodge should have known, but you know, Hodge made the mistake of trusting him. So it's Hodge's own fault, really. Then we go back to the Institute and Jace and Alec are getting their weapons ready to go track down Hodge. And Clary storms in and is trying to persuade Jace not to do it. She uses his own line against him with the whole don't let your emotions cloud your judgment thing, which I liked. Basically, most of this episode is just Clary trying to dispersuade Jace from doing crazy shit. But he ignores her and goes and does the crazy shit anyway. So Jace and Alec go off anyway. As they're leaving the Institute, we have one of my favourite scenes. Alec's like, should we get Magnus to track down Hodge? And Jace is like, stop thinking with your stelly, Alec. That was a dick joke. So then we see Clary, Izzy and Simon go to Hotel de Mort for Raphael's help. They ask him if they can unlock Camille, and he's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. And I don't blame him. Like, Raphael's the one with sense here. I wouldn't want to unlock Camille either. So he tells them that it's not gonna happen, but he has her belongings, so they can look at that. Then we cut to Jace finding Hodge, and we have this really epic fight scene between the two of them. I think it's one of my favourite fight scenes that we've seen throughout this season, because the fight scenes for me can be kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they're really on point, and then other times they don't work so well and they look a bit clumsy. This one was really great, and I liked that they both had different weapons and it looked visually amazing. You could feel the emotion in that fight as well. Jace gets a bit too wound up and almost kills Hodge. Luckily, Alec jumps in, pins Jace to the ground, tells him to stop being so angry. Luke has got hold of Hodge, so he's not going anywhere, or so they think. Then we cut back to Hotel de Mort, and Izzy is looking at Camille's belongings, whilst immediately you can see that Raphael is suspicious as to why she's doing that alone. So then Clary and Simon end up in the dungeon and end up freeing Camille. Nice little jump scare there, by the way, of her waking up and she's just lying there and then suddenly she's awake. Shit my pants. So let's talk about Camille for a second, because I'll admit in the previous episodes that I've seen her in, I haven't really liked her character at all, especially at first. In episode 3, when she was introduced, that was probably my least favourite episode because I just didn't like her character. This episode, finally, I really started to enjoy her presence on screen. She was fantastic in this episode. She was a complete bitch, but she was fantastic. So that whole scene with her in the coffin whilst Clary and Simon tried to find out where the Book of White is, I adored that scene completely because Camille was so sassy. She's been trapped in a coffin this whole time, but she's the one that's in complete control of this situation. She has them under her thumb and she knows that. So yeah, she completely owned that scene and I'm liking her so much more now than I did at first. So we go back to Luke and Alec having a little conversation about how Jace needs to be kept an eye on because he could turn into Valentine, potentially. And whilst they're standing there discussing keeping an eye on Jace, Jace has literally vanished with Hodge because they had their backs to him. Great job, guys! Well done. Fantastic watching of Jace. So yeah, Jace is gone with Hodge. Good times. We get a scene with Jace threatening and intimidating Hodge, trying to find out where Valentine is, and I really love this scene between them when Hodge says that Jace is just like his father, and Jace says, well, you know how slow and painful your death will be if you don't answer my questions. Jace was completely chilling in that scene. He creeped me out a lot. Hodge looked creeped out. I don't blame him. I'd have shit my pants too, so yeah. There were a couple of scenes in this episode where Jace talks to Valentine using the ring, and I enjoyed all those scenes as well. I'm liking this weird relationship between Jace and Valentine. It's interesting. So anyway, we go back to Hotel de Mort and Camille is out. They're trying to escape Hotel de Mort without the vampires finding them. Of course that doesn't happen. Raphael's there with his clan, waiting for them. He's calling Simon a betrayer. He wants both of them dead for what they've done. He's about to attack, and of course, Isabel Lightwood crashes down the wall, throws sunlight all over the place and saves the day. I love that she feeds Raphael's lines back to him as well about underestimating a Shadowhunter. And when she says adios, I love her so much. She's just so fantastic. I'm actually quite disappointed that she didn't have a bigger role to play in this episode because I love her when she's kicking ass, and she only got to do that slightly. Isabel Lightwood can kick my ass any day. So for Camille to hand over the Book of White to Clary, she requires payment in the form of Simon signing a contract that pardons her from being prosecuted by the Clave for turning Simon into a vampire. So they have to get this document, and the person that can do this document for them is Magnus Bane. So we finally get some interaction between Camille and Magnus. I have a love-hate relationship with this entire scene because I loved it, but I hated it at the same time. Because the two of them together, it's so good, but it's so annoying. You want Camille to stay away from Magnus, as far away from Magnus as is physically possible. Just stay away from him, please. I really loved how you could clearly tell that they had a lot of history between them though. So Magnus is creating this document and Camille is bringing up how her and Magnus fell apart, and then she says that he wouldn't know what to do with love, and then figures out that he might be in love. She smells angel blood approaching and ends up kissing Magnus just as Alec walks in. She knew exactly what she was doing there, didn't she? At least Alec didn't completely freak out at that. He was kind of chill. But yeah, that was a little awkward. I love Magnus throughout this scene as well, when he's like, and Alex he looks so done. Izzy is so sassy throughout this whole scene as well. When Camille says that Magnus is just creating the contract, and Izzy's like, and that required a lip lock? Also when Camille says that Alex cute, but it won't last, Izzy straight in again with, say that again and you won't last. Izzy! I love you so much. Protective sister mode. It's what I like to see. So yeah, that scene was awkward as hell, but I loved it. After that, Alec goes and fills Clary in on how Jace is missing and tracking down Valentine alone, and that they've got to stay focused on the mission. And of course, Clary isn't happy about that because she warned Jace not to do this crazy shit, and he's gone off and done this crazy shit. Poor Clary must just be feeling like, why do I even bother? So then we have Hodge taking Jace to where he previously found Valentine. But of course Valentine is no longer there. Jace puts on the ring, has a conversation, in which Valentine basically tells Jace that his friends are walking straight into a trap. So Jace tries to inform his friends of that. We cut to the squad arriving at Camille's apartment. She takes them into a room that is literally just filled with books and says that the Book of the White is there. Before she'll hand it over though, she wants the contract signed. So Simon signs it in his blood. Of course, straight after that, Camille's like, I would give you the book, but I don't know where it is. I knew she was gonna do something. It obviously wasn't going to be that simple. This is Camille we're talking about. So then Clary and Simon are left to find the Book of the White. Jace is on the phone to Clary, telling her that Valentine's on his way. She's like, do I care? I'm gonna find this book, bye-bye. You've done your crazy shit, now it's time for me to do my crazy shit. So Clary refuses to leave. Claire and Simon is searching the bookshelves, and Clary finds a cookbook that she remembers her mother having. And I like they kept in that little detail from the books, because in the books it was hidden inside a cookbook as well. So I like that nice little detail. She finds part of the bookmark inside the book, puts the rest of the bookmark to it, and it transforms into the Book of the White. Just as that happens, portal opens and Valentine appears. Daddy Valentine here to fuck some shit up. So Valentine walks in with his two little minions. Simon and Izzy both end up trapped. And then two more come in, holding Alec and Magnus. Just one little thing. How the hell did Magnus Bane, High Warlock of Brooklyn, managed to get himself caught by a newly transformed Shadowhunter? He wouldn't get trapped that easily, I don't think. Unless he let himself get captured because Alec was going to be captured and he wasn't going to leave Alec alone. I don't know. But anyway, everyone's trapped. It's all good. Valentine tells Clary that he wants her to wake up Jocelyn anyway, so he's not after the book. Then Jace walks in. Valentine is going on about how he wants them all to be a family and they'll all come round, all that sort of stuff. Jace is back to his self-doubt, wondering whether he's like Valentine and whether he'd be better off with him. And then Valentine promises that he won't hurt any of the others if Jace agrees to come with him. So of course, Jace agrees to do the thing, and there we go. Valentine takes Jace through the portal. Well done, Jace. You fucked up. I really loved how Clary reacted in this scene. It was so heartbreaking to see her run towards that portal and to see Alec have to hold her back and comfort her. That's one thing I've got to say, is that Kat as Clary has been on point throughout this entire episode. She's been really fantastic. She's been a lot more sassy and badass, and she's taking shit from no one at the moment. So I just wanted to point out how great Clary's been this episode. So then after that, we go back to the Institute. Simon and Clary are talking about Jace going off with Valentine, and Simon's assuring Clary that they'll find him. And they have this whole I love you hug thing. It seems to be hinting that there might be a romantic relationship forming between them next season. Like there was in the books, Clary and Simon do have a period of time where they're dating, kind of. I was hoping that we'd avoid that mostly in the show. I mean, we all knew that Simon was in love with Clary and stuff, but I was hoping that they'd kind of resolve that a bit quickly. But it seems like they're going to go with the whole Clary and Simon thing. But if it means we'll get some amazing Sissy at the end of it, I'll live through it. So then, we get this scene between Magnus and Alec having a little conversation in the corridor again. Angst. That's the only word I have. Angst. Magnus is reassuring Alec that he doesn't have any feelings for Camille, and Alec knows that, but he points out that what Camille said is true. Magnus is immortal, so everyone he falls in love with, he has to watch them grow old and eventually die. This is one of the most heartbreaking things about this relationship for me, and it caused me so much pain throughout reading these books. It caused Alex so much pain as well, and led him to make some really stupid decisions that included Camille. Now, I knew that eventually we'd hit that storyline, you know, because that is a roadblock in their relationship. That is something that they have to face at some point. Didn't expect them to start hinting at it at the end of season 1. I mean, can we not just let them have a little period of happiness first before the whole immortality angst starts coming in? By the time this all starts to happen in City of Fallen Angels, Magnus and Alec have been together for some time at that point. They've been dating for a while, they're happy, they're in a relationship. And that's when these doubts start coming to Alec, because the more he gets attached to Magnus, the more he realises that he's mortal and Magnus isn't. In the show, they haven't even been on a date yet, and already we're jumping straight to the immortality stuff. And you could tell that it was affecting Alec, because when Luke interrupts them about Jocelyn and Magnus walks off, it just focuses on Alec for like a second. And you can see his face, you know he's just thinking about that, and that's going to be wearing in the back of his mind constantly whenever he's with Magnus now. He's just going to be thinking about that mortal, immortal thing, and I just... Why? Why do we have to have this angst already? I mean, we had such happiness in the last episode. Episode 12 was so happy and beautiful, and Malik kissed, and now, one episode later, you're reminding us of the fact that Alec's going to grow old and die whilst Magnus isn't? I wasn't ready for that level of angst, guys. Magnus calling Alec Alexander though. I'm always happy whenever he calls him Alexander. So anyway, aside from the sadness and pain that is Malik, Magnus can finally wake up Jocelyn, which he does. I loved how Luke was there to catch her, and we had this really touching moment between them before she turned around to see Clary. They finally got reunited, they got to hug it out. It was a really lovely scene. So much nicer than it was in the books as well, because when Jocelyn awoke in the books, all hell breaks loose. It's like the shit hits the fan. But this was more touching and happy. But away from all the happiness of Jocelyn awaking in the Institute, we cut to our final scene of the season, and it's Valentine holding out his cup to all his new Shadowhunters, talking about his new Shadowhunter race, and Jace is standing there besides him. And they're on the ship, which I assume is the boat that's in City of Ashes. So I'm assuming we're going to get some of those storylines in season 2. I'll admit, when I first saw Valentine on the ship early on in the episode, I thought that we were going to get the Daylighter storyline, but not yet. Now that I've seen the ship, I am more confident that we're going to get the Jason Simon Daylighter scene. And hey, at least one ship sailed this episode. Wasn't exactly the ship that we wanted, but it sailed. So that was that. That was the season finale of Shadowhunters. I really, really loved this episode. I had no idea what to expect from it, and I was surprised by the things that happened. I thought it was really well acted by the whole cast. I loved the character development throughout the series, and you could definitely see that more in this final episode. No one's exactly happy, so we've got angst for a whole year until we get to season 2. Thanks, guys. I have so many questions. There are so many things that I'm wondering about. So I would really like to do kind of like an overview of the whole season at some point on this channel. Just do a video where I look back at season 1 in general and what I think could happen in season 2 based on this finale. I know we're getting that super fan suite thing that's airing where the cast are going to talk about what could happen in season 2 and stuff like that. So I'll probably make a video after that and discuss that in it as well. Overall, I have adored this show throughout this season. I'll admit there were a few issues at the start. There were some kinks that needed ironing out, but this is a show that has just kept on improving throughout the season, and I've just completely enjoyed watching these characters develop. I also just think in general this show has done a lot. You can say what you want about the script and the acting, because I know a lot of people have had issues with that. You can't deny that this has been such a wonderfully diverse show, and I'm really proud of it for that, because Shadowhunters has done things that fantasy shows that have been on air for a decade wouldn't dare to do. It just has such a diverse range of characters. It's got a really good attitude that I don't see many other fantasy shows having. So I'm really happy with this show, and I feel very, very proud. I'm like a proud mother right now. I know there has been a lot of negativity about the show, especially online. Me personally, I've always tried to be more positive about it, even when there have been things about the show that I haven't really liked that much. I've tried to at least be polite in mentioning it, but you know, I've seen people completely tear down the show, and that's fine because everyone's entitled to their opinion. But whilst I appreciate criticism, I don't think it deserves to be utterly mocked and laughed at, which I felt happened a few times. At the end of the day, you're not going to get a perfect book to TV adaptation. We knew that there were going to be changes going into this because it's happened before with other book to TV adaptations. You have to change the material. So if you were hoping for a perfect book to screen adaptation, you knew you weren't going to get it. If you started watching the show and didn't like it, then fine. But if you're not enjoying the show, just don't watch it. Because I've seen people that are acting like it's a chore to watch it and talk about it, and I just can't help but think, if you're not enjoying it, then just simply don't watch it. So what I'm hoping is that we'll have a lot more positivity online when it comes to season 2, because this show hasn't been the most perfect show on air. It hasn't been the best written show, but it doesn't deserve to be tore down. It doesn't deserve to be torn apart each week. I just wanted to say that before wrapping up this video, because I've seen a lot of controversy on Tumblr and Twitter this week with regards to people talking about the show. So anyway, that is all that I want to say right now. I just want to let you all know how grateful I am to everybody that's watched these videos and liked these videos over the past couple of months. I have completely enjoyed making them, and I'm going to miss discussing Shadowhunters each week because I've loved doing it. As always, please let me know all of your thoughts and feelings about the final episode in the comments. I'm always ready to discuss Shadowhunters. I'll leave a link to my personal Tumblr in the description as well, so if you want to discuss things further, then you can find me there. If you have any theories about season 2, then let me know. Also, let me know what your favourite moments from the whole season were. Tell me all the things. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all soon. Bye! How do I go back to life without Shadowhunters? What was life before this show?